The alarm went off at 5:02 a.m., just like every morning. I didn't even flinch. My body was used to it by now. I slid out of bed quietly so I wouldn't wake Marcus, even though the odds of that were pretty low. The man could sleep through an earthquake. I padded into the kitchen, barefoot, and already calculating the day in my head. Emails from Europe would be piling up. I had a meeting with Tokyo at 6 sharp. The twins had early choir practice. Groceries were running low, and I still needed to follow up on Dad's blood pressure meds. My name is Alina. I'm 42 years old. I live in a 4-bedroom house in Plano, Texas with my husband, our 11-year-old twin boys, and Marcus' father, who moved in with us after his second fall last winter. By 5:30, I had started the coffee, fed the dog, packed the boys' lunches, and printed a new schedule for the week. The house manager we hired, Delilah, was supposed to come by at 9, and I needed to leave her a few notes. She'd been a godsend, especially after I got handed the Singapore-Australia Defense Systems account 2 months ago. I was managing teams across 5 time zones, working with a group of people who liked to schedule meetings at 2 a.m. their time and act surprised when it was the middle of my night. By 6:05, I was locked in my office off the dining room, blazer over pajamas, hair pulled into something halfway presentable, and camera turned off. The Tokyo call dragged on. I found myself toggling between project timelines and the school's parent portal while one of the engineers explained a testing error. Around 7:15, the twins stumbled in, backpacks half-zipped, arguing over who had lost a science folder. I ended the call quickly, hustled them into the kitchen, and tried to keep the energy light while getting cereal into bowls and socks onto feet. At 7:45, I dropped them at school with a reminder to behave for choir director Mr. Sanderson, who had a short fuse and a long memory. When I got home, the house smelled faintly of bacon. Marcus was finally up. "Morning," he mumbled, scratching his neck, barefoot and still in pajama pants. He leaned against the fridge like he'd just finished a 12-hour shift. "You didn't make any eggs?" I blinked at him. "You're the chef, Marcus." He shrugged and popped open a cabinet. "I figured you had the morning free." I laughed once flat. "I had 3 meetings before sunrise." He rolled his eyes. "All you do is sit in meetings. You act like it's hard." I opened my mouth, then closed it. It wasn't worth it. It never was. We'd had this conversation in different forms a dozen times. He always said the same thing, that my job was just talking. That being home meant I wasn't really working. That he was the one carrying the real stress with his new pop-up supper club, even though he didn't start cooking until noon and barely broke even most weekends. When I asked him to help me with the twins' appointments or handle the bills 1 month, he told me I needed to delegate better. But there was no one to delegate to. I was the one handling everything. School sign-ups, medical appointments, groceries, prescriptions for his dad, car maintenance, and our finances, every last spreadsheet. And even with Delilah around 20 hours a week, I was still the one mentally holding it all together. I tried to bring it up last Thursday. I told him I was burned out, that I was starting to feel like a ghost in my own life. He nodded, then pivoted into a story about a food critic who might stop by the house on Sunday. I stood in the kitchen now, watching him scroll on his phone while the microwave beeped behind him. I wanted to scream. Instead, I walked into my office and closed the door. 3 more emails had come in. I took a deep breath and typed a reply with shaking fingers. It was only 9:03 a.m. The dining table was too small for this many people, but Marcus liked to cram everyone in on holidays and birthdays. Tonight it was his sister Danielle's birthday, her 49th, and somehow the whole family had ended up in our house instead of hers. The pop-up kitchen cart was out in the driveway, lights strung across the porch like a bistro, and we were doing some cobbled-together version of rustic Italian. I hadn't planned to host. I had a deadline for the Sydney proposal the next morning, and the twins had their spring showcase rehearsal at school. But Marcus had assured me it would be low-key and just family, which meant 15 people, 3 types of bread, and me cleaning the baseboards at noon because his mom was coming. Everyone was halfway into their second glass of Pinot when Marcus clinked his fork against his wine glass like he was giving a toast. "Can we just take a second to thank my amazing wife," he said, raising his voice over the chatter, "for juggling intergalactic meetings and finding time to scrub toilets. I mean, she's in aerospace, people. Big, stressful job, right, babe?" A few chuckles around the table. I forced a smile. "Thanks, Marcus. She's got it made," he continued, gesturing toward me with his glass. Sits in meetings all day in yoga pants. Meanwhile, I'm out here sweating over open flame in a trailer with a broken vent fan. More laughter. His mom smirked into her wine. Danielle muttered something about corporate princess problems. I felt my jaw tighten. It's not just meetings, I said calmly. There's a lot more to what I do. Sure. Marcus cut in, waving a hand. Emailing the Germans and ordering DoorDash. It's a tough life. The table went quiet for a beat. His dad, who'd been silently chewing the same bite of chicken for 5 minutes, muttered, "She does more than you think." Marcus didn't even look at him. I swallowed hard. My heart thumped against my ribs, but I didn't say anything else. There wasn't any point. Danielle switched the topic to her new car lease. Someone passed around the cannoli. After dinner, while everyone migrated to the living room to watch old family videos, I slipped away to the laundry room. A pile of clean clothes waited on the folding table: twin boys' socks, gym shorts, Marcus grease-stained prep aprons. I folded each piece slowly, robotically, letting the movement keep me from crying too loudly. The sound of laughter filtered in from the next room. I could hear Marcus, his loud, boisterous voice narrating one of his old Food Network appearances. Everyone was eating it up. I stared at the laundry basket and felt invisible. That night, after everyone had left and Marcus had passed out on the couch with a half-empty glass, I sat in the kitchen alone. The only light came from the under-cabinet strip. I opened the drawer, pulled out an old notebook I hadn't touched in years, and flipped to a blank page. I wrote, "He humiliated me in front of his family," and they laughed. Then I kept writing. Kept going until the words felt like mine again. The next morning, I started writing things down. Not in a journal. Not like the quiet breakdown I'd scribbled into a notebook the night of Marcus' family dinner. This was different. I opened a spreadsheet, something clean, factual, impossible to argue with, and I logged my day. 6:45 a.m. Boys up, lunch is packed. 7:30 a.m. School drop-off. 8 a.m. APAC stand-up call. 9 a.m. Call with Oslo team. 10:15 a.m. Met with CFO regional. 12:30 p.m. Rescheduled physical therapy for Marcus' dad. 1 p.m. Built Singapore systems briefing. 3 p.m. Grocery list update, sent to Delilah. 4:30 p.m. Picked up boys, handled science fair kit crisis. 5:15 p.m. Dinner prep, because Marcus needed time to focus on Thursday's menu. 7 p.m. Twins homework and violin practice. 8:45 p.m. Finalized Q2 budget review for presentation. 10 p.m. Cleaned kitchen, took out trash. 10:45 p.m. Cried silently in bathroom so no one would hear. 11:10 p.m. Stared at ceiling until sleep came. I kept the spreadsheet going. Day after day. Quiet documentation. No emotion. Just timestamps and facts. I started a second tab for Marcus. It wasn't petty. It was data. Monday. Slept until 9:45. Took call with a vendor. Did prep work from 3 to 6. Left kitchen mess. Complained about client flaking. Tuesday. Rest day. Stayed in sweats. Said his back hurt. Wednesday. Dropped off one batch of meals. Posted photos to Instagram for brand visibility. Napped from 2 to 4. By the end of the second week, the difference was almost ridiculous. I didn't tell him. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my therapist. Yet. But I did finally reach out to Lena, my old manager from my days in DC. She'd moved up fast, VP now, and I hadn't talked to her in years. Still, I remembered how she used to tell me, "You play small, you stay small." I messaged her on LinkedIn, kept it light. "Hey Lena, hope you're well. Curious if your division is doing any international expansion. Been juggling some global projects here, but thinking about future moves." She responded within the hour. "You kidding? I've been watching your name float up from the Tokyo and Brussels side. When can we talk?" That night, while Marcus played video games in the living room and the twins dozed off in their bunks, I sat on the floor of our bedroom and cried, but not from sadness. From something else I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. By the weekend, I had an appointment scheduled with a new therapist. She specialized in high-functioning burnout. I didn't tell Marcus. I didn't have to. He started noticing the change in small ways. I stopped over-explaining myself. I stopped asking him to do things twice. I started locking the bedroom door when I worked late. When he made jokes at my expense, I didn't laugh. One night, as I moved laundry from the washer to the dryer, he came in behind me and leaned against the doorframe. "You've been different lately," he said. "Are you seeing someone?" I kept folding the towels. "You mean like a personal trainer?" He didn't laugh. "Don't be cute. You've been cold. Distant." I turned slowly, looked him straight in the eye. "I've been clear." He squinted at me. "Right. Clear. Got it." He walked away like I'd insulted him. But I didn't follow him. I didn't fix it. I didn't soften. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was counting down. It was Memorial Day, and our backyard was packed with folding chairs, coolers, and cheap paper plates wilting in the sun. Marcus had made it his personal mission to host the best cookout on the block, which really meant inviting his entire extended family and turning the grill into a performance stage. I floated around the edges, refilling lemonade pitchers, checking sunscreen on the boys, making polite conversation with people I only saw 3 times a year. I'd worn a simple navy sundress and pulled my hair back. Comfortable, presentable, quiet. I didn't want attention. I just wanted to survive the day. The grill was smoking a little too much, fat dripping down and hissing against the flames, and I stepped up behind Marcus, keeping my voice low. "Hey, maybe dial down the heat. It's flaring pretty hard." He didn't even turn to look at me. "Why don't you go do something useful?" he snapped. "Maybe organize napkins or alphabetize the coleslaw." Laughter erupted from his cousin's friend group, who had heard enough to join in. Someone muttered, cold-blooded, like it was the punchline to a joke. I didn't blink. I didn't argue. I turned around, walked straight into the house, and shut the sliding door behind me. Inside, it was cooler. Quiet. I poured myself a glass of water, set it on the counter, and pulled out my laptop. The Wi-Fi was sluggish, but it didn't matter. I opened the HR portal and navigated to the internal application system. The promotion I'd been putting off applying for, the one that Lena had encouraged me to go after, was still open. Regional Director, Global Programs. I uploaded the updated resume I'd worked on in secret over the past few weeks. Attached my proposal draft. Hit submit. There. Done. Behind me, through the glass, Marcus barked orders like a cruise director with too much beer in his hand. I could see his sister, Angela, handing out plastic forks while shooting glances toward the house. A few minutes later, she slipped in through the side door. She found me still at the table, sipping water and scrolling through email like nothing had happened. She hesitated, then walked over and put a hand on my shoulder. "I saw what happened," she said softly. I shrugged. "He's in his element." Angela looked away for a second, then back at me. Her voice dropped. "You deserve better, Alina." I nodded. "I know." That night, after the boys were in bed and the last beer can was thrown in the recycling bin, Marcus came into the bedroom freshly showered. His hair was damp, towel around his waist. He slid in behind me while I sat at my desk. "Hey," he said, nudging me. "You've been weird lately. Let's fix that." I didn't move. Didn't even turn around. "Not tonight," I said quietly. "Not anymore." He sat up. "What's that supposed to mean?" I looked at him, steady. "It means you should sleep in the food truck." He scoffed, grabbed a pillow, and stormed out. I didn't follow. I didn't explain. Instead, I turned back to my screen and added one more row to my spreadsheet. Submitted application. May 27th. My countdown had begun. It was my therapist's idea. "You keep telling me he doesn't hear you," she said. "Maybe he needs to hear it somewhere he can't talk over you." I hesitated. "You think he'll even show up?" She shrugged gently. "Invite him. That's all you can control." So I did. I waited until the boys were at school, then found him standing in the backyard scraping burnt cheese off his griddle. I kept my tone even. "I have a session Friday afternoon. It's a couples thing. You're welcome to join." He looked up, sweat dripping from his temple, and narrowed his eyes like I'd just offered him poison. "Therapy?" he scoffed. "For what?" "For us," I said. "Because I'm tired of guessing what I even mean to you anymore." He didn't say yes. But Friday at 3:58 p.m., he walked into the office lobby, late but there. The room was softly lit. A love seat and 2 armchairs. Neutral walls. Our therapist, Dana, greeted us calmly and invited us to sit. I took a seat immediately. He stood for a second too long before flopping into the opposite chair, legs splayed like he was settling in for a joke he didn't want to hear. Dana started with something gentle. "Alina has described a pattern that feels one-sided. She's working hard at home and professionally, and feeling unsupported. Marcus, What's your perspective on the current dynamic? He exhaled sharply and ran a hand through his hair. Look, I think she's blowing everything out of proportion, he said. She's got a dream setup. Works from home. No commute. No boss breathing down her neck. She has help now. Delilah handles everything. And somehow I'm still the bad guy because I didn't preheat the oven? I kept my eyes on the rug. I'm not asking you to preheat anything, I said quietly. I'm asking you to see me. He let out a sarcastic laugh. I do see you. I see someone who turned into a corporate robot. You're cold, distant, always glued to a screen. Dana nodded, unfazed. When was the last time you felt connected to Alina? Marcus leaned back, arms folded. Before she got so corporate. Back when she used to laugh. Back when we could go on dates without her checking her phone every 10 minutes. Dana shifted gently. And when did that change for you? He paused. I don't know. I guess when she stopped appreciating what I do. I held this family down for years. While she chased promotions, I stayed home. I made dinner. I raised the boys while she flew to Europe every other week. I swallowed hard. That was 10 years ago, Marcus. He waved a hand. Still happened. And now she walks around like I'm some failure who never did enough. Like I owe her something. I turned toward Dana. My voice came out quiet, but steady. I don't think he likes me anymore, I said. I think he likes what I do for him. I think he likes that I pay the mortgage and carry the health insurance and manage his father's meds. But me? I don't think he's seen me in years. The room went still. Marcus' jaw tensed. That's not fair, he said, but his voice wobbled. Dana leaned in slightly. Marcus, what would change for you if Alina stopped doing all those things? He stared at the floor, then stood up abruptly. This is biased bullshit, he snapped. I should have known. He grabbed his keys from the side table and walked out. I didn't chase him. I looked at Dana, tears stinging but not falling. I just needed to say it somewhere I wouldn't be interrupted. And finally, I had. Father's Day brunch was held at Marcus' cousin's house, a sprawling split level in Frisco with a pool out back and a mimosa bar that wouldn't quit. There were at least 30 people there. I knew maybe 8 of them. I wore my polite smile, the same one I'd trained over the last year, and kept one eye on the twins while Marcus floated from group to group like he was running for office. He'd spent the whole drive there grumbling about how Father's Day was basically fake and how he was too tired to care. But now, with his chef's apron slung over his shoulder like a prop and a Bloody Mary in hand, he was basking in the attention. I gave him a small, carefully wrapped gift during the coffee hour, something from the twins and me. A framed drawing they'd made in school of Chef Daddy's kitchen, complete with smiling meatballs and a cartoon griddle. I'd added a custom apron with head burner, low earner, embroidered on it. Half inside joke, half nudge. He chuckled when he opened it. Finally, something useful, he said, holding up the apron for his cousins to see. I laughed lightly, trying not to take it personally. Later, while we were seated around the backyard patio table, someone brought up the school's Muffins with Mom event from a few weeks back. I'd missed it, stuck in back-to-back calls from Stockholm and Perth. The twins had brought home muffins and told me it was fine, but I knew it had stung. I was sad to miss Muffins with Mom, I said quietly, reaching for a napkin. Marcus didn't miss a beat. Maybe if you weren't always pretending to be CEO of the universe, you could make a school event once in a while. The words were loud enough to cut through the music. Laughter died off. Someone across the table shifted uncomfortably. And then, out of nowhere, his mother, Mara, cleared her throat and said, "Maybe you should let her go then." The air snapped. Marcus stared at her. "Excuse me." Mara didn't flinch. "If she's too busy and too cold and too corporate for you, maybe stop using her as a punching bag and figure it out." Marcus forced a laugh, turned to the table like it was a joke. "Oh, come on. Nobody would want her anyway. She's cold as ice." He said it like he was teasing, but the tone was bitter, sharp. The table went completely silent. I didn't flinch, didn't look around, didn't check if the twins had heard, because I knew they had. I stood up slowly, straightened my dress, picked up my purse. "I'm going to head home," I said calmly. Marcus looked at me, almost confused. "Alina, don't be so dramatic." I didn't respond. I walked out of the backyard, through the side gate, down the driveway to our car. I sat in the driver's seat for a minute before starting the engine, waiting for my hands to stop shaking. No one followed. No one called after me. That was the last moment I needed. Not a scream, not a slap, just that sentence, said like a joke, in front of his entire family. And I knew, finally, that I was done. Marcus was still asleep when the knock came. It was 10:06 a.m. He never stirred before 10 on weekends, especially if he'd been out working late in the food truck the night before. I was in the kitchen, sipping my second cup of coffee, already dressed. I'd laid out a breakfast plate for the twins and scheduled a sitter to take them to their friend's pool party. Today was not a day for distractions. The knock came again, short and firm. I opened the door to a courier holding a manila envelope and a digital pad. Alina Carter? Yes. He nodded, handed me the envelope. For Marcus Carter. I'll need a signature. I signed, thanked him, then walked down the hall. Marcus was still buried under the duvet, one foot poking out, snoring lightly. The curtains were half drawn. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, but he didn't notice. I set the envelope on the bed next to him and said, gently, "This is for you." He groaned and cracked one eye open. "What? Open it." He blinked at me, confused, sat up slowly, ripped open the flap. Silence. Then his voice, low and rising. "Are you kidding me right now?" I didn't answer. He pulled out the papers, flipping through them like they were fake. "You're serving me? You actually filed?" I met his eyes. Calm. Certain. Yes. He threw the blanket off and stood. "You didn't even talk to me. You didn't even try." "I tried," I said. "For years." He started pacing. "You're doing this because of one bad brunch. One fight." I stayed where I was. "No. I'm doing this because I can't let my kids grow up thinking this is what love looks like." He pointed at me like he wanted to throw the envelope. "You just want to control everything. You turned the boys against me. Even your damn therapist was in on it." I took a deep breath. "I didn't turn anyone. You did that all on your own." He stopped pacing and scoffed. "What? You think you're better than me now? You think because you wear blazers and sit in meetings with Germans that you're more important than a real man who actually cooks food with his hands?" I tilted my head slightly. "I think I spent a decade carrying this family, and you resented me for it." He opened his mouth to fire back, but didn't. And then, behind us, a soft voice. "She gave you everything." We turned. His father was standing in the doorway in slippers, holding a mug of tea. He looked older than usual. Tired. Marcus blinked. "Dad, she gave you everything," his father said again, quietly. "And you gave her resentment." Marcus didn't respond. I nodded to his father in thanks, then turned back to Marcus. "I'll cover your insurance until the end of the year. After that, you're on your own." He stood frozen as I walked past him, back into the hallway. By noon, I was packing boxes in my home office. Labeled each one clearly: books, launch binders, desk drawer, move to HQ. I had a corner office waiting for me downtown, and I was walking toward it. Finally, without looking back. By the second week after the papers were served, Marcus was on what I can only describe as a redemption tour. He started making breakfast. Every morning. Not just reheated waffles or cereal. He made omelets shaped like dinosaurs for the twins and left out fancy fruit bowls that no one asked for. The boys were confused, blinking at the table like someone had broken into the house and replaced their father with a chef-themed cartoon. "Why is Dad acting like he's in a commercial?" Oliver asked one morning. "He's just going through something," I said, buttering toast. Sometimes adults behave strangely when they know they've lost something important. By the end of the week, Marcus had reorganized the pantry, deep-cleaned the garage, and offered to handle the school drop-offs. He even started picking up groceries, though he still texted me from the produce aisle asking what "charred" looked like. At first, I didn't say anything. Let him perform. Let him sweat. I didn't react, and that seemed to confuse him more than any argument ever had. Then came the dinners. Elaborate spreads with salmon and lemon risotto, braised short ribs, handmade ravioli. He bought flowers for the table and lit candles, trying to pretend like we were a couple again. Except we weren't. Not even close. I cleared my own plate and thanked him after each meal. Nothing more. No hugs. No lingering looks. The kids started asking if something was wrong, and I just told them we were figuring things out as grown-ups do. But Marcus? He was unraveling, slowly, behind the mask. One night, after the boys were in bed and the dishwasher hummed quietly in the background, he found me in the kitchen. I was wiping down the counter, already in sweatpants, my mind still halfway in work mode. He stood there, eyes glassy, his shoulders slumped. "I miss you," he said. I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "I know I've been a jerk. I said things I didn't mean. I know I took you for granted, but I'm trying. You can see that, right? Still, I said nothing. He looked at me like he was trying to crawl inside my silence. Please, he said, just give me another chance. We can fix this. I turned toward him, arms folded, my voice low and level. If it was going to work, I said, it would have worked before you humiliated me at your own brunch. He blinked. I kept going. Before you rolled your eyes in therapy. Before you barked at me in front of your family. Before you turned every effort I made into a punchline. His mouth opened like he had something to say, but nothing came out. So I ended it for him. I'm done, Marcus. I don't need an apology. I don't need a performance. I need peace. He didn't cry. Not at first. He just nodded slowly, like he'd finally heard the answer he hadn't been brave enough to believe. Then he turned around and walked out of the room, shoulders sagging like a balloon finally giving in to gravity. I stayed in the kitchen, washed the final mug, and flipped the light off behind me. There was nothing left to fix. The new apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, a narrow galley kitchen, a living room with big windows but worn carpet. It was on the 3rd floor of a building with no elevator, and the laundry machines shared a closet with the water heater. But it was mine, and it was quiet. The twins had helped unpack, dragging boxes labeled Lego and snacks into their room and arguing over who got the side closest to the window. I let them figure it out. They were adjusting better than I expected. Maybe better than I was. I stood in the hallway that Saturday morning, holding a handful of their crayon drawings, deciding where to hang them. One was a rocket ship with my name written across the side in shaky block letters. Another showed all 3 of us holding hands under a purple sun. No Marcus, just us. I taped them above the kitchen counter, smoothing the corners down one by one. My phone buzzed on the table. Legal confirmation, divorce finalized. Custody terms, filed and complete. I stared at the message. No emotion came right away. No tears. No breathless relief. Just stillness. Like I was standing in the middle of a room that had been shaking for years, and it had finally gone still. A few minutes later, Lena texted. You did it. The launch report's out. Highest performing division in Q2. Global VP sends her congrats. I smiled. Small. Genuine. That night, the boys and I ordered pizza and curled up on the couch. We watched a documentary about dark matter. One of those kid-friendly ones with silly animations and voiceovers that made the universe sound like a fun video game. They asked questions. I answered the ones I could. I promised we'd go to the planetarium next weekend. After I tucked them in, I stepped out onto the small balcony with a chipped wooden railing and a plastic chair someone had left behind. The air smelled faintly of grilling burgers from a neighbor's apartment. A quiet hum of cars rolled in from the street below. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and sat with a mug of tea. No laptop, no calendar reminders, no notifications. Just the sky above me and the quiet buzz of a life I'd built from scratch. I stared up at the stars for a while, thinking of how far I'd come. How many times I'd convinced myself I had to stay because leaving would be too disruptive, too hard, too selfish. But in the end, it had been the most generous thing I could do for myself and for the boys. I took a sip of tea, let it warm my chest, and whispered into the dark. Finally,